I was only 20 when I met Ethan. I was working 2 jobs while taking night classes in business administration. Ethan was charming, driven, and full of dreams about becoming an architect. He talked about his future with stars in his eyes, and I believed every word. His vision felt contagious, like something bigger than both of us. I had never seen someone so passionate about their ambitions. He had no money. His family barely scraped by, and he couldn't even afford the application fee for architecture school. But I believed in him. I thought if someone like him had a chance, he could change the world. So, I did what I thought any loving partner would do. I offered to help. I used my savings to pay for his application. When he got in, I cried tears of joy. He said it was our victory, our dream. I took on a 3rd job to support him through school. While he studied, I worked from sunrise to midnight. I paid for his books, rent, food, and transportation. My own dreams were quietly folded and tucked away, like old letters never sent. I told myself it was worth it, that one day he'd succeed, and we'd both live a life we deserved. He promised me that once he graduated and got a good job, we'd get married, buy a home, and I could finally go back to school for my master's. Those promises kept me going. We moved in together in a small apartment that I paid for. He studied late into the night, and I cooked, cleaned, and made sure he never had to worry about anything except his future. I loved him with everything I had, and I never once asked for anything in return. Not even gratitude. I just wanted him to succeed. But the thing about dreams is, sometimes they turn into nightmares. Ethan's first semester went well. He passed his classes, made new friends, and joined a few architecture clubs. Every night he'd come home full of excitement, talking about blueprints and building philosophies I barely understood. I'd sit on the couch, exhausted after back-to-back shifts, just smiling and nodding, happy to see him thriving. But little by little, something changed. At first, he stopped asking me about my day. Then he stopped noticing. When I was too tired to eat, or when I cried silently in the shower from stress, I didn't complain. I told myself he was just focused, that his silence was a side effect of ambition. I reminded myself that I was doing this for both of us. The first real crack came during a family gathering. Samantha, my cousin, was there. She had always been the prettier one, the one people noticed. Confident, glamorous, the kind of girl who walked into a room and pulled gravity with her. She was friendly to Ethan, a little too friendly. I caught her laughing at one of his jokes, touching his arm casually. Ethan didn't pull away. He laughed back, looking at her in a way I hadn't seen in months. It unsettled me, but I buried the feeling. I didn't want to seem insecure. I trusted them both. I had no reason not to. Samantha was like a sister growing up. We shared secrets, clothes, even a bedroom during summer visits. And Ethan, he was the man I built my life around. But soon, Ethan started dressing better. He bought new shoes, cologne, and started styling his hair, even though we were barely scraping by. I asked him where the money came from. He said a classmate had given him a gift card. It didn't sit right with me, but I let it go. I started to feel invisible. He no longer touched me. No more good morning kisses. No late night cuddles. Just silence, distance, and cold shoulders. I told myself it was just stress, school, pressure, exhaustion. I convinced myself he still loved me. Then, one evening, I came home earlier than usual. My shift was cut short because of a power outage at the diner. I thought it would be a sweet surprise. I brought Ethan his favorite takeout and hurried up the stairs to our apartment. When I opened the door, I heard laughter. Female laughter. I froze. It was coming from the bedroom. My heart dropped. Every step I took felt like a betrayal of its own. I opened the bedroom door slowly, but it was empty. The sound was from his phone on speaker. A video call. Samantha's voice. He quickly ended the call and looked at me like I'd invaded his privacy. I asked him why he was talking to my cousin alone, in our bedroom, with the door closed. He said I was being dramatic, that I was paranoid, that I should trust him more. He twisted it into a guilt trip, made me feel like the bad guy. I apologized. Like a fool, I said sorry. After that, things went downhill faster than I could hold them together. He started staying out late, said he was studying at the library, but he'd come home smelling like perfume I didn't wear. He changed his phone password. He started being more critical about my clothes, my job, even the way I spoke. And Samantha, she started pulling away from me too. Cancelled plans, stopped texting, stopped visiting. She used to be like my shadow. Now she was a ghost. Deep inside, I knew, but I wasn't ready to face the truth. Because if I accepted it, it would mean everything I'd sacrificed. My time, my money, my future had all been for a lie. I kept waking up before the sun, going to work, paying the bills. I still bought groceries for both of us, still washed his clothes, still made his life comfortable, all while he slowly erased me from his. But I didn't know then. My darkest days were still ahead of me, and so was my transformation. It was a Thursday afternoon when the truth finally slapped me across the face. I was cleaning the apartment, like I always did on my rare day off. Ethan had left early, saying he had a group project and wouldn't be back until late. I wasn't expecting anything unusual. I just wanted to clear the mess and maybe get a moment of rest after an endless week. As I picked up his laundry from the bedroom floor, his jeans slipped from my hands and something fell out of the pocket. A receipt. I stared at it confused. A hotel receipt, 2 nights, 5-star, champagne service. A room booked under his name, with the check-in date just 3 days prior. My breath caught in my throat. My hands trembled. I read the details over and over, hoping I was misreading something. But no, it was real. I wanted to scream. I wanted to collapse. But more than that, I wanted to know who. My hands acted faster than my heart. I opened his laptop. He never logged out of his email, probably because he assumed I wouldn't look. He was right. I never had a reason to check. Until now, I found dozens of email exchanges. Some were with his professors, classmates, but then I saw a thread labeled S. The email address was Samantha's. I opened it. Each message was a knife. Flirtatious lines, plans to meet, complaints about me, how she doesn't understand me, and I feel alive when I'm with you. They had been meeting behind my back for months. The hotel receipt was just the latest betrayal. I clicked an image attachment and felt my stomach turn. A selfie. Ethan and Samantha, half-dressed, lying in the same hotel. Bed I had paid for with my broken dreams. I couldn't cry. I was too numb. I closed the laptop, sat on the bed, and stared at the wall for hours. The sun shifted across the floor. The sounds of the city came and went, but I didn't move. I didn't blink. I had given him everything. I had sacrificed my youth, my savings, my education, my health, just to lift him high enough to fly. And now that he had wings, he chose to fly straight into my bloodline and burn me from within. Later that evening, he came home whistling, tossing his bag on the couch like nothing was wrong. He didn't even notice my blank expression. He kissed my cheek and asked what was for dinner. I didn't answer. I walked past him, opened the drawer, pulled out the receipt, and placed it on the table. He glanced at it and froze. I didn't need to say anything. The silence screamed louder than any accusation. He stuttered, said it was for a friend, then said it was a joke. Then finally, when the mask dropped, he looked me dead in the eyes and said, "You always knew I deserved better." Those words broke something in me. Not because they hurt, but because they revealed who he truly was. All this time, I thought I was building a future with a man who appreciated me, but I was just a stepping stone on his climb to a higher version of himself. And now that he thought he had arrived, he wanted to wipe the dirt from his shoes. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just stood up, walked to the bedroom, grabbed a suitcase, and began packing. He asked what I was doing. I said nothing. He tried to laugh it off, said I was being dramatic, that I'd get over it. But something inside me had shifted. I had been small for too long, quiet for too long, kind for too long. Now I was done. I left that night. No explanation, no long speech, just silence and a locked door behind me. I stayed on a friend's couch for a few nights, slept with the weight of shame and rage pressing down on my chest. But somewhere in those quiet moments, something strange began to grow. Clarity. And from that clarity, a fire. I wasn't going to cry over a man who used me. I was going to rebuild. Better, stronger, louder. The Isabella who walked out of that apartment was broken. But the Isabella who would rise from those ashes, she would become unstoppable. The first few weeks after I left Ethan were a blur of survival. I bounced between couches, working extra hours, barely sleeping. The betrayal had shattered something inside me, but strangely, it also unlocked a strength I never knew I had. I wasn't just angry, I was determined. I found a small, run-down studio apartment on the edge of town. It had peeling paint, creaky floors, and a broken heater. But it was mine. It was the first space I had ever occupied that didn't belong to Ethan, didn't carry his scent or his shadow. I stood in the middle of that room on the first night, surrounded by silence and empty boxes. And for the first time in years, I exhaled. I made a plan. The years I spent working multiple jobs had taught me how to endure. But now I wanted more than survival. I wanted to win. I wanted to rise so high that no one would ever see me as disposable again. I picked up extra shifts at the diner and used my tips to enroll in online business courses at night. I barely slept, but I had purpose. Each class brought me closer to the woman I wanted to become. Each hour I worked was an investment, not in someone else's dream this time, but in mine. On weekends, I freelanced as a virtual assistant for small businesses. At first it was just data entry, scheduling, answering emails. But I paid attention. I watched how these businesses operated. I learned how marketing worked, how e-commerce could explode overnight with the right idea. One client, a small candle shop owner named Marie, saw something in me. She started giving me more responsibilities: inventory, budgeting, social media. Then she asked if I'd be interested in managing her online store. I said yes without hesitation. With Marie's mentorship and trust, I learned how to run a business from the inside out. And something sparked in me. I'd always loved skincare, natural remedies, oils, scrubs. I used to mix my own facial masks when I couldn't afford name brand products. It started as a hobby, but now I saw it differently. I began developing small batches of organic skincare products in my tiny apartment, just a few jars at a time. I posted them online. At first, nothing happened, but I kept going. I tweaked formulas, improved packaging, learned basic design. Then one night, a beauty influencer randomly discovered my products through a friend. She posted a glowing review on Instagram. Orders exploded overnight. I didn't sleep for 2 days. I packed everything by hand, responded to every email, and shipped as fast as I could. I poured every cent I had into scaling up. Within 6 months, I had a website, a loyal customer base, and enough income to quit the diner. I renamed the brand Bare Bloom, a tribute to growing from nothing. Every jar, every bottle carried a piece of my stories, and people loved it. Strangers wrote to me saying the products healed not just their skin, but their confidence. And every time I read those messages, I smiled, because I was healing too. Meanwhile, I didn't hear from Ethan or Samantha, not a word. But I didn't need to, because success is loud, even when you say nothing. I started dressing better, walking taller, smiling wider. The girl who once cried quietly on cold apartment floors was now negotiating with suppliers and attending business expos. I was becoming the woman I was always meant to be. One morning, I walked past a familiar coffee shop near Ethan's old campus. I hadn't been there in over a year. As I stepped in to grab a drink, I overheard two girls at a nearby table gossiping. "Did you hear about Ethan?" one said. "What about him?" Apparently Samantha left him. Took everything. He's working at that grocery store on Main Street now. I froze. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I just blinked slowly and took another sip of my coffee. The universe wasn't just balancing things. It was delivering. I didn't plan on seeing him. It was a random Tuesday, and I had just come from a product meeting with a new supplier. My hands were full of samples, my mind racing with ideas. I stopped by the grocery store on Main Street to pick up a few things: almond milk, lemons and honey for a new exfoliating mask I was testing. The store was nearly empty, just a few old women browsing the produce, and a cashier humming behind the counter. I turned the corner into aisle 6 and froze. There he was, Ethan, wearing a faded green apron, restocking shelves of canned goods. His shoulders slouched, his hair greasy, his once pristine posture now hollow. There was no light in his eyes, no hint of ambition or fire, just a man surviving. He didn't see me at first. I could have walked away. I could have turned around and slipped out the door unnoticed, but something in me said no. I walked straight toward him. My heels echoed on the tiles. Each step felt like justice. He finally looked up. Our eyes met, and the color drained from his face. "Isabella," he croaked. I tilted my head slightly, offering the faintest smile. "Hello, Ethan." He stood there stunned, his hands frozen on a stack of soup cans. I could see the war behind his eyes. Shame, regret, disbelief. He looked me up and down. My tailored coat, my designer bag, the glow on my face. I didn't need to say a word. "You look different," he stammered. "Yes, I do," I said calmly. "Life's been kind to me." His mouth opened, then closed again. He was searching for something to say, but everything was too late. He finally mumbled, "I heard about your business. You're doing well." I nodded. Better than well. I just launched in Europe last month. That hit him hard. His eyes dropped to the floor. Meanwhile, I looked around the aisle, pretending to search for a product. "How's Samantha?" He flinched. "She left," he said quietly. "Took everything. Said I was a loser. That I'd peaked in college." I let out a soft laugh. Not cruel, just honest. "That must have hurt," I said, grabbing a jar of honey and placing it in my basket. "But then again, you always did surround yourself with people who only stayed when it benefited them." He looked up again, his face pale. "I didn't know what I had until I lost you." I gave him one long look, the kind that doesn't need anger to cut deep. "No, Ethan, you knew exactly what you had. You just never thought I'd leave." Silence stretched between us, the air thick. His hands trembled slightly, gripping the edge of the shelf. He tried again. "Maybe we could grab a coffee sometime. Just talk?" I smiled politely, but my eyes were still. I don't drink coffee with people who mistake love for convenience. I turned and walked away, my heels clicking like a gavel slamming down a verdict. As I reached the register, the young cashier complimented my coat and scanned my items. I paid, stepped outside into the sunlight, and exhaled. I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel pain. I felt powerful. Not because Ethan had fallen, but because I had risen, on my own terms, without needing to step on anyone to get there. The tables hadn't just turned. They had spun in full circle, and I was standing on top of them. Weeks passed after I saw Ethan at the grocery store. I thought about him once or twice, but only with the kind of distant curiosity you'd give an old classmate who took a wrong turn in life. My focus was sharper than ever. Bear Bloom was now moving at full speed. Our online orders doubled in a month, and I had to hire a small team to keep up with production. Every day, my inbox overflowed with customer reviews, influencer inquiries, and retailers begging to stock my products. Then came the email that changed everything. Subject line: feature opportunity, women who built empires. It was from a major lifestyle magazine, One, with millions of subscribers and international reach. They were running a cover story about self-made women who had built successful businesses from nothing, and someone had recommended me. I stared at the screen for a full minute before the weight of it sank in. They wanted to interview me, the girl who used to cry in her car between shifts, the woman who paid for a man's degree only to be cheated on and discarded, the same woman who now ran a company generating 6 figures a month. The interview was emotional. I didn't sugarcoat anything. I told the full story, how I supported someone else's dream, how I was betrayed, and how I clawed my way back. They asked about Ethan. I never said his name. I simply smiled and said, "He taught me that believing in the wrong person can break you, but believing in yourself will rebuild you." When the magazine came out, my face was on the cover. My story was everywhere. Online, in stores, on people's coffee tables. Comments flooded in. Strangers from across the country sent messages of support, encouragement, and gratitude. Women said they saw themselves in my journey. Young girls said I inspired them. Business owners asked me to speak at their events. Suddenly, I wasn't just running a skincare company. I was someone. And it wasn't long before the past came knocking again. One evening, after a product shoot, I checked my phone and saw a message request on social media. From Ethan. The profile picture was dull. Just him in a dimly lit room, smiling awkwardly. The message was short. "I saw your interview. I'm proud of you. Wish things had been different." I stared at the screen, not with anger, not even sadness, but with the kind of peace that only comes when your scars have turned into armor. I didn't respond. He didn't deserve a reply, because the girl who once begged for his time was now a woman the world listened to. I posted a new story that night, just a quote on a black background. Sometimes the apology never comes. Sometimes you become the apology. It went viral. People reposted it thousands of times. Blogs quoted it. My following tripled in a week. And somewhere, I imagined Ethan seeing it, realizing it was meant for him. But again, I felt nothing but peace. Not because he was suffering, but because I wasn't anymore. 6 months after the magazine feature, everything changed. I wasn't just building a brand anymore. I was becoming one. My inbox now included invitations to speak at empowerment conferences, guest spots on business podcasts, and even a partnership offer from a major cosmetics company. They wanted to carry Bare Bloom in their high-end boutiques. I didn't say yes immediately. I remembered the early days, mixing formulas on the kitchen floor, packing boxes until my hands went numb, crying over betrayals that nearly broke me. I wanted to protect the soul of my brand. So instead of rushing into deals, I hired a brand strategist. I expanded carefully, intentionally. I started a scholarship fund for young women pursuing entrepreneurship, especially those who had experienced abuse, manipulation, or abandonment. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about restoration. One night, I was invited to a gala honoring female founders who had overcome adversity. As I stood backstage, wearing a sleek emerald dress and heels that made me feel like I could walk through fire, I remembered the girl I used to be, the one who skipped meals to pay his tuition, the one who listened to Samantha complain about her love life, not knowing she was sleeping with my boyfriend, the one who worked overtime while being lied to, gaslighted, and discarded. That girl deserved this moment. When I stepped on stage to accept the award, the applause echoed in my chest like thunder. I took the microphone. A few years ago, I thought supporting someone else's dream would bring me closer to mine. I poured everything into a man who saw me as a tool, not a teammate. When he left, I thought I was finished. But I wasn't. I was just getting started. The room went still. To every woman who has ever been made to feel small, quiet, or disposable, please know, you are not. You are a storm waiting to happen. You are a story worth telling. And sometimes, when people leave, they make space for everything you're meant to become. The crowd rose to their feet. Some cried. Some clapped hard enough to shake the chandeliers. I smiled through it all, not for the applause, but because I knew the truth. I had become the woman I once needed, the woman no one saw coming. The next morning, I woke up to a wave of new messages and tags. One caught my eye, a video stitched on TikTok, showing my speech side by side with an old photo of Ethan and me at his college graduation. The caption said, "She paid for his future. Now he bags groceries while she builds empires." Never underestimate a woman's comeback. It had over 2 million views in 12 hours. I didn't repost it. I didn't comment. I didn't need to, because my life now was louder than any caption could be. A week after the gala, while reviewing campaign plans at my office, my assistant knocked on the door. She looked hesitant. "There's someone downstairs asking to see you," she said. "He won't leave." I raised an eyebrow. "Who?" She sighed. "He said his name is Ethan." For a second, I felt nothing. No panic, no heat in my chest. Just a dull sense of curiosity, like rereading a book you've long outgrown. I stood, straightened my blazer, and walked calmly downstairs. There he was, standing awkwardly by the glass doors, dressed in his grocery store uniform, a paper bag clutched in one hand like it gave him purpose. His eyes met mine. Not the eyes of a man in love, not the eyes of a man proud of his past, but the eyes of someone who finally realized what he lost. "Isabella," he said, almost in a whisper. "You look incredible." I didn't reply. He cleared his throat. I've been thinking a lot about us, about everything." I nodded slightly, giving him room to speak, but nothing more. I messed up. I was stupid, selfish. I don't know what I was thinking. Samantha, she left by the way, ran off with some guy she met on a cruise. I said nothing. She took my savings. I had to move back in with my mom for a while. I work part-time now, trying to get back on my feet. He paused, searching my face for sympathy. "I know I don't deserve a second chance, but maybe we could talk, get coffee, catch up. You always saw the best in me." I let his words hang in the air, like smoke with nowhere to go. Then I spoke, slowly, clearly. "You're right. I did see the best in you, even when it wasn't there." His face dropped slightly, but I kept going. "And I gave everything I had, money, love, time, because I believed in the man you could have been." He looked down. "But here's the thing," I added. "I didn't become this woman by clinging to the past. I became her by letting go of everything that tried to break me, including you." He looked up, eyes glossy. "I just wanted closure," he whispered. I smiled gently. "I don't owe you closure. I gave myself peace." Then I turned and walked away, heels clicking against the tile like thunder behind me. My assistant looked at me with wide eyes as I returned upstairs. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Perfect," I said, because it was. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I didn't fall apart. I simply showed him, without needing to prove anything, that I had outgrown him in every way. That day, I posted something new on social media. A picture of my office window, sunlight pouring in, and the caption, "When the past knocks, let it wait outside. You're too busy building the life it never believed you could have." Weeks passed after that final encounter with Ethan, and life never felt more clear. Not easier, just more intentional. Every choice I made now had purpose. Not to prove a point, not to silence doubters, but because I finally knew my worth, and I wasn't about to let it slip away again. My brand, Bare Bloom, was thriving. We'd opened our first flagship store in the heart of the city, where women of all walks came not just to shop, but to feel seen. I launched a campaign called She Who Rises, telling real stories of women who had rebuilt after betrayal, loss, and devastation. We highlighted survivors, single moms, cancer warriors, former inmates, and abandoned wives. Their stories mirrored pieces of mine. It became more than skincare. It became a movement. And just when I thought I had reached my peak, an unexpected opportunity arrived. A national talk show invited me as a guest. They wanted me to speak about entrepreneurship, self-worth, and yes, how I turned heartbreak into fuel. I almost said no, but then I thought of the girl I used to be, crying in the bathroom, reading Samantha's flirty texts to Ethan, skipping meals so he could pay for books, believing I was too plain to be loved fully. She needed to speak. So I accepted. The morning of the show, as makeup artists flitted around me, I looked in the mirror. I didn't see a victim. I saw a force. On stage, under bright lights, I shared everything. Not just the pain, but the rise that came after. I ended my segment with a simple truth. Sometimes, the person who betrays you is the very push you needed to finally find yourself. The applause was thunderous. When I stepped off stage, a young woman from the crew approached me, teary-eyed. "My fiancé just left me for my best friend," she whispered. "But watching you today, I think I'm going to be okay." I hugged her tightly, because that was it. That was the real win. Not the money, not the recognition, but knowing my pain had become someone else's permission to heal. That night, as I walked alone through the city streets, I passed by the grocery store near my old apartment. Through the glass, I saw Ethan, stacking oranges in the corner. He looked tired. Older, not from age, but from regret. He didn't see me, and I didn't stop. I simply smiled to myself, because I finally understood something profound. I had spent years trying to build a life for him, but now I had built one no one could take from me. A life made of scars and strength. A life where my name stood on products, not promises. A life that didn't wait to be chosen, because I had chosen myself. Months later, as autumn painted the city in shades of golden fire, I stood before a packed auditorium at a women's leadership summit. My name flashed across the big screen behind me. Isabella Hart, CEO, founder, survivor, fighter. People clapped as I stepped up to the podium. But I wasn't here to bask in applause. I was here to deliver a truth I had lived. I looked at the crowd, women of all kinds, some with bright eyes, some with tired hearts, all of them carrying silent battles. And I began. "I was once just like many of you," I said, voice steady, believing that love meant sacrifice, that loyalty meant losing myself, that support meant silence. Some in the crowd nodded, already seeing themselves in my words. I paid for his rent, I paid for his college, I paid for his dream, because I thought it would lead us to ours. I paused. But when that dream came true, I was no longer part of it. A ripple of silence passed through the room. He didn't just cheat with my cousin. He took everything I had and left me with pieces of who I used to be. I let that sit. And still, I said, I thank him. Murmurs of confusion. Because if he hadn't left, I wouldn't have found the version of me who was born in the ashes of betrayal. The woman who built an empire from the ground she was broken on. The room erupted in quiet, powerful claps. I smiled gently and continued. To anyone out there trying to glue themselves together after someone shattered, your spirit, let me tell you something. I leaned forward. You don't need revenge. You don't need them to feel what you felt. You just need to rise so beautifully that they can never look away without feeling what they lost. The standing ovation was thunderous, but I didn't cry. Not this time, because this wasn't the end of my story. This was the prologue to everything I had yet to become. Later that night, I stood on the rooftop of my newest store location, city lights glittering like stars below me. Beside me was a man who had stood by my side, quietly for the past few months. marketing director named Nathan. Kind eyes, steady hands. He never asked for more than I could give. Never demanded space I wasn't ready to offer. But he was there, patient, present. He handed me a glass of sparkling water and smiled. "You crushed it today," he said. I smiled back. I didn't do it for them. I did it for me. And that's exactly why it worked, he replied. We clinked glasses. In that moment, I didn't think about Ethan. I didn't think about Samantha. I didn't think about the pain. I thought about the little girl I used to be, looking in the mirror and wondering if she was enough. And I whispered in my heart, "Yes, you are. More than enough." Epilogue: Ethan still works the evening shift. Samantha vanished from social media after her latest boyfriend scammed her out of her savings. Me? I mentor young women. I speak at shelters. I donate to programs that fund women's education. But most of all, I live, not for a man, not for revenge, but for the woman I fought to become. And every morning I remind myself, I wasn't his ending. I was always my own beginning.